Hello, welcome to Insights in Action with Orange 142, where we interview agency leaders and business owners to uncover the journeys, the strategies, and the insights that drive their success. At Orange 142, we're all about transforming brand stories into impactful digital experiences through innovative media and marketing solutions. And today I'm joined by Gyi of AttorneySync. How's it going, Gyi?
Good, Shiv. Great to see you, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Geet, I was checking out the website and you work with attorneys. It's clear in the name, but I'd love to learn, just to start this off by hearing a little bit of your background, what brought you to Attorney Sync, and a little bit about Attorney Sync.
Sure. So, as the story goes, I was a trial attorney in a former life and very brief career, but as a new lawyer, out there looking around, okay, what are the internet marketing options for a small law firm? This is probably like 2006, 2005, 2006. Anyway, and a lot of the conversations I had with lawyers at the time was, I don't think that people are going to use the internet to hire lawyers like us. This is 2005, so it's not like super early, but lawyers tend to be on the slower adoption curve, especially when it comes to technology. And so that was the genesis of AttorneySync. My partner and I, who's a friend of mine from undergrad, were like, we can deliver more transparent and accountable services in this space. And yeah, that was the beginning of it. And we've been doing that now since 2008.
That's amazing. And I think you're right too. They are a little slower on the adoption. Is that the reason why most attorneys, I'm talking more personal injury attorneys, I use billboards and bus stops, benches and all that stuff? Is that they're just not used to the like digital aspect of it?
Well, that might have been more true back in 2000, 2008. Now
Okay.
there's been huge adoption in
Hmm.
legal. And it's interesting too. We joke because lawyers have been inconsistent about their tech adoption. So when the cloud came out and practice management providers started emerging, there was a lot of resistance in legal. People were concerned about security and privacy of files. But the irony was is that the cloud was more secure than the ways that they were securing files themselves. And so they were very resistant to it. Now, flipped on its head, now we're in 2024, they've widely adopted AI. I think lawyers, Goldman Sachs came out with that study, I think it was 2003, talking about professions and career industries that are likely to get most disrupted by AI. And lawyers was way up there. And so I think that led to a lot of law firms being like, oh, hey, we got to figure this out or else this is going to be very disruptive to our practice. So it's a little, I just thought it was funny, the interesting juxtaposition between how reluctant they were to adopt with the cloud and their opposite viewpoint when it comes to AI.
So funny. Yeah, I guess when the chat GPT can pass the bar on the first exam or first attempt, it makes it a little bit easier for them to adopt AI. And that was what I was always thinking. I was like, man, lawyers are either really good at cross-channel marketing, they understand omni-channel really well, or they're just like, what billboards and buses work. So
Yeah.
so that's cool.
Yeah, it's funny. Is as soon as we say the word omni-channel, a lawyer's eyes will glaze over. He has no idea or she has no idea what that means. But when you start talking in terms of traditional forms of advertising, billboards, radio, direct mail, they start, oh, is that's what you mean? You mean all these different channels working, TV. Lawyers have been very highly quick to adopt OTT. There's a lot of, especially you mentioned personal injury lawyers, the plaintiffs bar, they're spending a lot of money on digital today.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah, some of the most expensive keywords on Google Ads are legal keywords, right?
That's true. That's true. They do spend a lot, which is great. It's a great industry to be in, I think, and something that's gonna, it's one of those things that's really recession proof too. People are going to need lawyers for the most part. So I think that's especially from your background, I think that's a cool thing a route to go down. And so while helping these law firms grow profitably through digital marketing, how do you tailor your strategies to address the unique challenges and ethical considerations of marketing within the legal industry?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. So, lawyers, every state governs what's permissible for lawyers to do from an advertising perspective through their rules of professional conduct. And so there are limitations to advertising and marketing law firms that don't exist in other verticals. But for me, it comes back to really understanding who the firm is, why they're doing what they're. It's all the classic kind of marketing stuff. Because for us, once you tease that out, then you get better understand from thinking about it from an SEO perspective. Then you understand, okay, These are some of the organizations that they care about. These are the sponsorship opportunities. And so for us, it's really about identifying what those opportunities look like in their local community with businesses and organizations that they are also passionate about supporting. And so that intersection between digital and local community, it moves the dial. It really does. And so when we talk about like customization, even though there are some general maybe guideposts in the blueprint, like you really do need to build out an individualized strategy for that firm in that market to be effective.
Yeah, definitely. And is it pretty true that what will work in one market, one local market, won't work in another market for whatever reason?
Yeah, it's all different reasons. But again, it comes back to like, how is that audience consuming media, and where do you want to be? Are you really focused on like bottom of the funnel direct response, like peep search ads, like non-brand search queries, local services ads? Are you doing brand building and demand generation? Where are those people? What messaging is going to resonate with them? And the other thing that we tell lawyers all the time is focus on segments of markets and communities. You don't have to be the market leader in order to do well. Like if you tailor your messaging to specific communities, to specific affinity audiences, maybe there's different groups and organizations in your community that you also are a member of. That's a great way to get in front of somebody and stay top of mind. And so when in the context of personal injury, 99% of the time, people don't need a personal injury lawyer. That 1% that they do, can you be the lawyer that they think of when they're making that referral or when they need to make that phone call because now they might need your services? And that to me is that's where that local omni-channel approach really works well.
Yeah, definitely. And it's so funny. It's like when you do lawyer marketing effectively, it almost like I'm thinking of, I come from Arizona originally, the Phoenix area specifically. We've got one very popular lawyer there that all he does is spend money. And it's like this cultural thing now. Everybody knows Rafi, he's the lawyer because he's on every single billboard, he's on every single bus and bench and all that. And so when you do it effectively, like even now I think, oh man, if I ever had a personal injury, I know who I'm calling. And so it's almost like how insurance companies spend billions of dollars a year on advertising. Most people aren't going to switch right away, but when they do, they're going to think of things like Geico or Progressive or something like that. And so it's a lot of that brand awareness. But even on the other end, one thing that we do as an agency for lawyers too is competitive conquest. We'll say, hey, anytime somebody that step is looking for a lawyer and they step into another law office, they'll be shown your ads. And so there is that brand awareness, and then there is that like almost conversion marketing that you can do alongside things like Google and that type of stuff, which is really cool.
Yeah, again, that's my whole thing is, starting with analysis of business metrics, like how are you trying to grow? What does success look like? Then putting a resources behind that in terms of a budget, and then how are you going to spend that money? And so again, for me, most of the time, it's unless you're a top of market dominating law firm, that saturation, top of mind awareness marketing, one, it's going to take time no matter what. And two, it's going to be expensive. Think about the cost of those billboards, TV, radio, all that media. That's a lot of money. And so, again, I tell lawyers all the time, don't get discouraged. You don't have to be the 800-pound gorilla in your market. You can do, that's the great thing about digital is you can really drill down in targeting and have a lot of success and still get positive returns on your campaigns.
Yeah, definitely. And so I know that Attorney Sync emphasizes accountability and transparency. Can you share any specific practices or processes your agency employs to uphold these values in client relationships?
Sure. The first thing on accountability, we do everything month to month. A lot of agencies lock people into long-term contracts, especially in the legal space.
Mm.
And I'm just like, that just creates an atmosphere of zero accountability. Like our clients know that we got to bring and deliver the value metrics month in, month out, or else they're going to start looking around. And again, that's why to me, we have to be able to connect the dots between actual business metrics and our activities. No vanity metrics. We're not trying to say, hey, we're going to grow your follower counts. Sure, there are leading indicators of success, but unless you can get to a point where, for us, we look at a lot of cost per case, open case files, because that's a value metric for a lot of the personal injury firms we work with. That's what I would speak to on accountability. Transparency, I'm a big believer that the law firms should own their own ad accounts. They should own their own website content, own everything. Like you're building equity in that data, in those accounts, in those platforms. A lot of our competitors will you'll have to get on some kind of proprietary thing, and you don't own the ad accounts, you don't own your content, you don't own your content management systems. And so when you want to migrate, you're basically starting over. and you're leaving a lot of that equity that you built up over the table. In fact, you're giving it to the agency. So I'm big on that. We're very clear about exclusivity. So, we don't think it's right for an agency to be working with two directly locally competing law firms. And so we have a conflict check process. We have some clients that will waive the conflict, which again, that's to their discretion. But so many of our competitors, they'll be working with 30, 40 firms from a digital standpoint in the same market. And I'm like, there's only 3 spots, a search result page, that are going to get any clicks at all. And really, it's a winner take most game. So you really are talking about being in the top spot most of the time, at least talking local pack or organic pack or those top 3 spots in local services ads. I don't know how you can represent both firms' interests. Anyway, I ranted there, but that's some of the ways that we do that we live our values.
I love that. That's awesome. It's almost like you're bidding against yourself at some point if you have like a bunch of the same clients. And so taking that extra step and making sure that each one of your clients gets the attention they deserve and you have the accountability between being a month to month agency as well. A lot of agencies don't do that. And you do have to come in and I've worked for agencies that do both, and you do have to prove yourself every single month. And that's such a benefit to any sort of client, not just law firms, right?
Yeah, and
Uh,
it keeps us focused on the right metrics too. It's very
yeah,
motivating when you're like,
yeah.
hey, we've got to explain what we're doing and how it's valuable to this firm every single month. Keeps us very focused.
Yeah. We talked about this a second ago. You've been involved in various discussions about the role of generative AI in legal marketing. How do you see AI transforming the way law firms approach their marketing efforts?
Oh boy. So I'm going to break this down into like short term, medium term, and long term. And I'll start with long term. And I'll tell you, I'm a Ray Kurzweil person. I was just reading this. There's a paper back in November 2023. You might have seen it. But basically, the it was a comparison of AI versus doctors using AI, and AI versus doctors not using AI and using search. And to save, and again, it's only one paper, so it's not the end of the world, but this is my long term bucket. Watch out, folks. Like this AI by itself is outperforming doctors. So I tell everybody, you better find ways to do what the bots cannot. I talk about it in the context of even for media buyers and agencies. If you're spending time doing things that bots can do better, you better find some other ways to deploy your human resources because they're getting really good. And so I tell lawyers the same thing. I'm like, you better find ways to deploy it. And guess what the advantage is? Where if you deploy it in ways that it's actually a net positive from a client experience standpoint and getting better results and all that kind of stuff, you should be freed up to have more time to do the human element of law practice. So serving clients, providing great experience from a marketing standpoint, AI actually should free you up to be able to do more of the in-person marketing events, in my opinion. That's the way that I look at it. Can you use AI for content ideation? Of course. Can you use AI for data analysis? Of course. There are a million different ways you can use generative AI in your, content development strategy and your media buying strategy. I mean, we use it extensively in our media buying operation. That's the intermediate. And then in short term right now, again, if you've never done it at all, if you've never tried it at all, like there's still people that aren't using it. And so I would say get involved and start just doing some basic prompting. But I know firms that are building their own GPTs, building their own agentic GPTs. And it's pretty clear to me in the intermediate term that it's like the most powerful tool you can use in your arsenal. But again, at this stage, it's still a tool. I think there's arguments to be made that ultimately we're going to be the tool trying to shape the AI, but we're not quite there yet.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. It is taking over so much, and it's so interesting in that it's a product that the market makes better. It gets better and the market pays to make it better, which is like, who would have ever thought a product like that really exists?
And it gets better exponentially. That's the other thing that I think folks like. It's just so hard. We're linear learners, right? The speed with which our brains acquire information, if you set that as linear, this is exponential learning growth. And so again, I've been following Kurzweil for a while. He predicts AGI by 2029 and singularity by 45, I believe. And if you add 5, 10 years ago, you might still think he was nuts. But here we are.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. What a little bit on that note, not just AI, for law firms that are hesitant to invest in digital marketing or hesitant to use AI, what advice would you offer to help them understand the potential return on investment and the importance of a strong online presence?
Yeah, I would just say we have this conversation all the time. Lawyers will say, we're just basically word of mouth. We do good work. Our clients talk about us and sing our praises. And I'm like, that's great. I'm like, that's awesome. And if your business is continuing to grow at the speed that you want it to, or not growing, maybe you don't want to grow. That's awesome. But if you want to grow, you are putting yourself at a massive competitive disadvantage by not being part of the online community. Does that mean that every lawyer needs to be everywhere? Not unless you want to be one of those saturation-based marketers, but finding a way to position your expertise, especially in your local community, and actually making your firm more human. Like the internet, social media, search, all these things, they play a huge role because guess what? You don't have to be an internet marketing expert to realize everybody's staring at their phone 4 to 8 hours a day. That's where the attention is, like it or not.
Yeah, I know that's absolutely true. I think that the big thing too and this is a something that we see not just in the legal industry but also in other industries is that switch from marketing as a cost to marketing is an investment. When you're looking at your P&L sheet at the end of the month, you're putting your marketing, in your cost sheet and then you're saying how much you spent and everything. But what other industry, it's funny, I've said this on this podcast a few times, but what other industry can you put down $1 or even investment vehicle, could you put down $1 and get back three, four, five, even $10? Where can you get those sorts of returns? And so once that switch happens for business owners in general, I think it's a big part of it is partnering with a really good agency that can do that on a consistent basis. But then you were like, okay, let's keep putting more money into this because it's working, and as long as it's working, let's keep doing it.
That's exactly right. That's our entire business is here's our forecast.
Yeah.
If the forecast works for our client's business and we hit the forecast, everybody's slapping high fives. Now, look, remember, forecasting is predicting the future. It's hard, but when you can do it, of course, you double down. I think the other thing that we've seen a lot of recently, I'd be curious to see if you notice a similar trend. A lot of the firms that we work with, they want to build in-house teams. And I'm always like, look, having an in-house team is great. Having in-house resources is awesome. There's a lot of things that they can do better because they're in-house, they're on the ground with you. But I will also challenge a lot of the in-house folks to stay on their toes because in order to have the full discipline of all the things that we talked about today, really it's an agency. Unless you're going to build your own marketing agency inside your business or inside your firm, agency partners just bring a lot more diverse experience across channel, especially talking omni-channel. Like to build a team that can really buy media effectively on omni-channel, that can actually manage database effectively, right? Because if you're talking about doing data analysis across channel, like we're exporting everything to BigQuery and using Power BI. And is your team doing that? I don't know. So anyway, but I have seen it's been cyclical right now. It seems like there's an uptick in building in-house.
Yeah, which is so interesting because it a lot of times that does end up being so much more expensive. You guys do SEO, for example. Google changes its algorithm like every other day. And so do you have are you going to hire somebody in-house that is going to take care of all of that for you and stay on top of that? That's an expensive hire, right? And so especially in a lot of these cases, I think it is wiser and cheaper to outsource.
Right. Well, and unfortunately, the alternative is also true, right? Which is that they'll hire one person that they think is going to do all this stuff. Like they're going to hire this magic unicorn, and they don't actually want to even pay that person that much. So that what they end up doing is hiring like a $50,000 to $60,000 mid-level marketing manager who knows a little bit about all these different things. But then when you dive into the reporting, you're like, this data is all broken. Like this data is not actually informing your strategy. And you're optimizing to all the wrong KPIs. Like you're optimizing to more traffic, but none of this traffic's converting. It's not relevant. Like you're not actually connecting it to the back end. And so anyway, I always caution businesses in general, be careful. If you don't make that apples to oranges comparison, one mid-level marketing person is not the same as hiring a sophisticated digital agency.
Absolutely. Spot on. Gyi, this has been fantastic. Where can people learn more about you? Where can people learn more about your agency?
I'm pushing LinkedIn these days. So
Okay.
if you search my name or search AttorneySync, I'll come up in Google. But
Okay. I'll have
yeah.
a link down below too.
Yeah, we have to tell everybody to search on our names now because it's clear that user feedback to Google is an important part of how Google works. And so I tell everybody, just search my name.
For sure. Well, thank you so much for being on. This was very enlightening. I really enjoyed talking about the future of legal marketing and AI with you. Thanks.
Thank you, Shivs. Great talking to you.